June 23, 1944. The mid-Atlantic Ocean lay silent, an endless stretch of black water, 870 nautical miles west of Cape Verde. Beneath those waves moved the Japanese submarine I-52, commanded by Uno Kameo. His mission was simple: deliver gold, tin, and war materials to Germany. But in reality, I-52 was sailing straight into history, and into the sights of a weapon Japan didn't even know existed. Everything on board felt calm. The rendezvous with the German U-530 had gone smoothly. Soon I-52 would make a night run toward Europe, but within 3 hours, Commander Kameo and his 94 crewmen would be gone, victims of a new kind of warfare. The ocean they thought they ruled was no longer theirs. From above, an American Avenger torpedo bomber searched the darkness. Its radar picked up the faint echo of a steel hull slicing through water. Lieutenant Commander Jesse Taylor's crew dropped flares, and the Black Sea lit up. Kameo ordered an emergency dive. Depth charges exploded above them, but the Americans weren't done. Taylor released a small floating cylinder called a sonobuoy. It looked harmless, but it was about to rewrite naval warfare. The device listened. It caught the hum of I-52's propellers and sent the sound back to the aircraft. For the first time in history, a submarine was being hunted underwater in real time. Taylor released an acoustic homing torpedo, codenamed Fido. It followed the sound of the submarine's engines, and then silence. Moments later, the radio crackled with the crushing sound of metal collapsing under pressure. I-52 had been destroyed. 17,000 feet below, Kameo and his crew met their end. And above, the Americans had captured every sound of their destruction, recorded forever on thin wire spools. That night wasn't just the end of one submarine. It marked the end of Japan's control over the ocean. At the start of the war, Japan's submarine fleet was a marvel of engineering. They built giants, the I-400 class, the largest submarines ever constructed at that time. 400 feet long, capable of carrying aircraft, they could sail around the world without refueling. Japan believed these leviathans would guarantee their dominance of the sea. But while Japan built massive machines, America built something else: systems. Factories working day and night produced sonar, radar, sonobuoys, and acoustic torpedoes faster than Japan could even design countermeasures. Every passing month tilted the balance further toward the Allies. By 1944, American technology had turned the ocean into a surveillance grid. Sonobuoys painted invisible maps underwater. Aircraft hunted submarines like predators tracking blood in the water. Every time a Japanese submarine dived for safety, it only made itself easier to find. Hunter-killer groups, escort carriers surrounded by destroyers, used radar, sonar, and aircraft in perfect coordination. Submarines once feared became prey. The Japanese crews began to notice the impossible accuracy of Allied attacks. Depth charges would fall exactly where they hid. Torpedoes seemed to know where they were going. It was as if the ocean itself had turned against them. June 1945, 9 American submarines crept through the minefields of the Tsushima Strait. Waters Japan believed were completely sealed off. The Americans had a secret: FM sonar, a device that could see underwater mines and guide them safely through. As they advanced, the sonar made a haunting sound: Hell's bells! One by one, the submarines passed through the barriers and entered the Sea of Japan, a region the Japanese Navy thought was untouchable. In just 2 weeks, those 9 submarines sank 28 ships. For Japan, the message was devastating. Nowhere was safe anymore. The ocean that once protected them had become enemy territory. Japan had 70 submarines. America built more than 300 in 4 years. When one was lost, another was already waiting to replace it. American shipyards worked like clockwork. Hundreds of factories producing engines, batteries, torpedoes, and sonar units in perfect sync. Meanwhile, Japanese submarines waited months for spare parts. Repairs stalled, missions were canceled. Even their mighty I-400s couldn't hide from radar or survive the American anti-submarine nets that filled the Pacific. Their commanders realized a terrifying truth: this wasn't a battle between sailors. It was a battle between industries, and Japan's industry could never keep up. By 1945, Japan's merchant fleet was gone. American submarines had sunk over 2,300 Japanese ships, more than 5 million tons of cargo. Rice, oil, and materials stopped flowing to the homeland. The empire was suffocating. Inside the submarines, morale crumbled. Young men knew that every patrol might be their last. Out of 10,000 Japanese submariners, over 70% never came home. Submarine duty, once considered an honor, had become a death sentence. When Japan finally surrendered, the surviving officers saw American submarines up close for the first time. They were stunned. Everything worked perfectly. Radar, sonar, computers, weapons. Their own systems, in comparison, felt like relics. One officer, Lieutenant Commander Nambu, later said, "The moment I knew Japan had lost the war wasn't after Hiroshima. It was when I heard American radio traffic, efficient, calm, unstoppable." When the war ended, the proud I-400 and I-401, Japan's giant aircraft-carrying submarines, surrendered without ever firing a shot. A year later, the Americans sank them deliberately off the coast of Hawaii, so no one else could study them. The message was clear. These machines no longer mattered. Technology had already moved beyond them. But from defeat came transformation. After the war, Japanese engineers studied what went wrong. They realized that courage and craftsmanship alone couldn't win a modern war. You needed innovation, precision, and reliability. That philosophy would soon power Japan's economic rebirth through companies like Sony, Toyota, and Honda. The Submariner's painful lessons shaped a nation's future. Japan stopped trying to build the biggest machines and started building the best ones. The wire recordings of I-52's final moments still exist today, faint echoes of metal collapsing beneath the sea. They mark the exact moment when control of the ocean changed hands, not through battleships or bombs, but through science, engineering, and industry. Commander Uno Kameo never knew what killed him, but his death symbolized the turning point of an era. From that day forward, the ocean belonged to those who controlled the technology to master it.